morning after the spacer attack, the farm felt smaller. Not weaker, not broken, just smaller. Maybe it was because I had seen men come over the ridge with engines and rifles and the kind of confidence that comes from taking what does not belong to you. Maybe it was because I had watched the fence rails splinter, the porch explode, and the water collector tear open like a gutted animal. Or maybe it was because Dane had placed that old Vanguard badge in my hand, and suddenly the farm no longer felt like the edge of my world. It felt like the place I might one day leave. I did not like that thought. I did not like how it sat inside me either. Heavy, warm, dangerous. The badge was in my pocket now, wrapped in the same old cloth Dane had kept it in. I could feel it against my thigh with every step. Not much weight by itself, a few ounces of worn metal. Deep navy, nearly purple under certain light, with an orange Vanguard mark faded at the edges from years of fingers and weather. But it might as well have been a ship anchor. Dane had said to think about it. That was the problem. I thought about it while patching the south fence. I thought about it while hauling broken slats from the porch. I thought about it while Mara stitched Dane's arm again, because he had accidentally opened the wound trying to lift something he had no business lifting. I thought about it while cleaning my rifle. That was the worst part. I'd always liked cleaning the rifle. There was order in it. Strip it, wipe it, oil it, reassemble it, check the action. A weapon was simpler than a person. If something was wrong, you could usually see it, fix it, or replace it. People were not built so kindly. I could still feel the trigger break under my finger. I could still see the spacer drop. Dane said only fools were proud the first time. I was not proud. I was not sure what I was. Alive, mostly. That morning, the Freestar Rangers came back. Not deputies this time, rangers. You could tell by how the farm went quiet before they even dismounted. Akila people had a certain way of noticing authority. They did not always respect it, but they noticed it. 2 of them rode in on dust-caked mounts with a third following in a small patrol rover. Their coats were weathered, their hats low, their sidearms clean. One was a tall woman with a narrow face and eyes like a rifle sight. The other was a heavy-set man with a blonde mustache, chewing something that looked like it had lost a fight with his teeth. The woman did the talking. "Dane Harrow?" Dane stepped off the porch before she reached the yard. His arm was wrapped, but he held himself like he had not been shot yesterday. "Ranger Vale," she said. "This is Ranger Koss." Koss nodded once. His gaze moved past Dane to me, then to Archer. It stopped on Archer. Most people's eyes did. Archer lay near the goat pen, pretending to sleep. He had discovered early that being still made people underestimate him. I had discovered early that Archer never slept when strangers were near. Vale looked at the broken fence, the scorched dirt, the damaged collector, the bullet scars across the porch. "Looks like you had a busy evening," Dane said. "I've had quieter." Her mouth twitched, but it was not a smile. "We need to ask a few more questions." "You asked plenty last night." "Last night we were clearing bodies and making sure the rest of the raiding party wasn't over the next ridge. Today we're asking properly." Dane glanced toward me. "Ask?" Vale followed his eyes. "Your foster son?" I hated that word once, foster. It used to sound temporary, like a box someone put you in until they decided where you really belonged. But on her tongue, standing there in our damaged yard, it did not sting the same. Dane said, "Craven Hammerfell." Her eyes narrowed with recognition. Not recognition of me, recognition of a record. People always thought they were subtle when that happened. They were not. "Born Jemison?" she asked. "The well," I said before Dane could answer. Vale studied me. "You fired during the attack?" "Yes." "How many shots?" I had counted while cleaning the rifle. 6. "How many hit?" My mouth went dry. "1 confirmed, maybe 2. Koss stopped chewing. Vale's expression did not change. "You understand the difference between defending a property and executing a fleeing man?" I did not answer right away. Dane did. He fired at armed spacers actively engaging this farm. I asked him. Dane's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Vale looked back at me. I felt the old reflex. Lie, shrug, make a joke, turn slippery. In the well, questions were traps, and the only way through a trap was sideways. But Dane had taught me something else, so I told the truth. I fired at the one aiming at Archer, I said, and at the crawler to draw the turret. I don't know if the second one hit anything important. I wasn't trying to execute anyone. I was trying not to die. Vale held my eyes for a long moment, then she nodded. Fair enough. Koss pointed his chin toward Archer. That thing yours? Archer opened one eye. His name is Archer, I said. Didn't ask his name. That was my answer. Dane made a sound that might have been a cough. Mara, from the porch, said, Craven? That one word had enough warning in it to make me shut my mouth. Ranger Koss looked amused. Ranger Vale did not. Did the Ashta attack under command? She asked. No, I said. He reacted. To you. To the threat. Vale wrote something on her slate. You understand, keeping an Ashta near civilians may create concerns. He's been near civilians for years. He also tore apart a spacer bike yesterday. So did the crawler explosion create concerns, or are we only blaming Archer for being effective? This time Dane did cough. Mara's eyes promised consequences later. Vale looked at me like she was deciding whether I was brave, stupid, or both. Then she looked at Archer. Archer stared back. It was not a friendly look. It was not unfriendly either. It was the look of a creature deciding where someone belonged in the order of teeth. Vale put the slate away. We'll need you in Akila City before noon, she said. All three of you. Mara's brows lifted. All three? Dane Harrow, Craven Hammerfell, and the Ashta. Archer, I said. Vale ignored me. Statements need to be signed. The salvage claim needs documentation, and there are questions about the spacer's route. Dane said, We'll come. I looked at him. He did not look back. Something in his voice had gone flat. After the ranger stepped aside to inspect the wreckage, I saw Dane and Vale walk toward the old water collector. Too far for me to hear, close enough for me to see Dane's face. They spoke quietly. Vale asked something. Dane answered. She looked back toward me once. I pretended not to notice. Then Dane said something that made her go still. Not shocked, not angry. Interested. My hand moved to the badge in my pocket before I realized it. Mara came up beside me with a crate of bandage wraps in her hands. Don't stare. I'm not. You are. What are they talking about? If Dane wanted you to hear, he'd speak louder. That was not an answer. Mara handed me the crate. Load these in the rover. Yes, ma'am. Akila City was not far, but the road made sure you respected the distance. We took the old farm rover because Dane's arm made riding stupid, and Dane was only stupid when Mara was not watching. Archer followed alongside for the first stretch, then finally accepted the rear cargo platform after I bribed him with dried meat and patience. He hated vehicles, not feared them, hated them. There is a difference. Fear makes a creature shrink. Hate makes it glare at the engine like it plans to settle accounts later. By the time Akila City came into view, the sun was high and hard, flattening the land into dust and gold. The city rose from the rock like it had been argued into existence. Walls first, then roofs, then towers and landing structures, and the uneven bones of a settlement that had grown by stubbornness instead of design. It was quieter than New Atlantis. That was the first lie people told about Akila. They said it was quiet because they confused the lack of shine with stillness. Akila did not hum like New Atlantis. It did not sing with elevators, transit systems, advertisements, and polite machines telling you where to stand. Akila moved differently. Leather creaked, boots hit boards, engines coughed overhead as ships came in low toward the spaceport. Vendors called prices from shaded stalls. Children darted between crates until someone shouted them back. A mechanic cursed from under a landing strut. Somewhere, a livestock animal made a noise like it had discovered religion and hated it. Akila City was alive, just not in a way the well would understand. The well lived under pressure. Pipes, bodies, secrets, and hunger all packed too close together. Akila lived with space between its ribs. It breathed dust. It wore its scars out where everyone could see them. We entered through the main way, and conversations thinned as soon as people saw Archer. That happened everywhere. A man carrying a sack of grain stepped aside so fast he nearly tripped over his own boots. A woman at a water stall stopped filling a jug and watched with both hands frozen around the handle. 2 kids stared with open mouths until their mother dragged them behind her skirt. Archer walked at my left side, head low, plates relaxed, but eyes bright. He was not armored today in full plates, just the field harness and the blue semi-teal protective pieces over his shoulders and spine, scraped from years of use in yesterday's fight. The wound under his front plate had been cleaned and packed. He limped, but only if you knew him well enough to see it. Everyone else just saw teeth. "Stay close," I muttered. Archer's tail twitched. That meant either yes or stop telling me obvious things. Dane walked ahead with Ranger Vale. Mara had stayed back at the farm, which meant I had no one to save me if my mouth ran loose. Koss walked behind us, not because he did not trust us, he claimed, but because he was admiring the creature's stride. Archer did not believe him. Neither did I. We passed the farming shops first because Dane insisted on stopping for replacement valve seals. Of course he did. Yesterday the farm had been attacked by spacers. Today we needed seals. That was life on Akila. Disaster did not excuse broken equipment. Old Bren at the supply counter saw me and raised both brows. "Well, if it isn't the boy with the monster." "Morning, Bren." He leaned over the counter to look at Archer. "Heard your monster ate a spacer." "He did not eat anyone." Bren looked disappointed. "Shame. Would have saved disposal fees." Dane gave him a look. Bren cleared his throat. "Valve seals?" "2 packs, Dane said. "And collector mesh if you've got it." "I've got it if you've got credits." "I've got credit here older than your knees." "My knees don't owe me money." Their argument was familiar enough that for a moment, everything felt normal. Then Bren's eyes softened when he looked at me. "Heard you stood your ground," he said. I shrugged. "Didn't have many places to run." "No," Bren said quietly, "but some folks run anyway." I did not know what to do with that. So I said, "You charging us or composing poetry?" He laughed, and the pressure in my chest loosened by half an inch. Outside, a woman from a seed shop waved me over. Her name was Tala, and she had sold Mara drought root starters every season since I arrived. "You all right, Craven?" "Yes, ma'am." She looked at Archer. "He all right?" Archer sniffed a display basket of root bulbs. "He's fine. Don't let him near those." She snatched the basket back. "Still stealing food, is he?" I glanced at Archer. Old habits. Tala smiled. "Seems that's going around." I should have been offended. I was, a little, but there was warmth in it. Not the soft kind. Akila did not do soft well. More like a rough hand on the shoulder. We moved deeper into the city. The main street was crowded enough that I started looking for exits out of habit. A cargo hauler had just landed, and workers were unloading crates near the port path. A pair of pilots argued with a mechanic over fuel rates. Shopkeepers had awnings stretched against the sun. Dust hung in the air, turning sunlight into a visible thing. Rangers moved through the crowd in pairs, asking questions, checking faces, speaking to merchants. Word had spread about the spacer band. Word always spread faster than truth. By the time it reached the city, I had apparently killed 5 men, Archer had eaten 3, and Dane had fought off the crawler with a shovel. I preferred the shovel version. Near the mission board, 3 Trackers Alliance hunters stood reading wanted notices. You could spot bounty hunters by how they pretended not to watch everyone while watching everyone. One wore polished armor too clean for the street. Another had a rifle across her back and a scar that cut through one eyebrow. The third was older, thin, and smiling at nothing. Wanted posters flickered on the board. Spacer faces, smugglers, debt runners, a murderer out of Cydonia, a woman accused of stealing a corporate ship and making it halfway across the system before vanishing. The older tracker looked from the board to Archer, then to me. "Nice pet," he said. "He's not a pet." Archer turned his head slowly. The tracker's smile faded a little. "Companion, then." "That depends. On whether he likes you." The scarred woman laughed. The old tracker stepped back just enough to pretend it had been his idea. Koss, behind us, said, "Try not to start a public incident before signing your statement." "I'm behaving. That's what concerns me." At the ranger station, Archer was not allowed inside. That became a discussion, then an argument, then a silent contest between me and Ranger Vale that I lost because she had a building, a badge, and 3 armed deputies, and I had an Ashta with a bad shoulder and a strong opinion about doorways. "He waits outside," Vale said. "He doesn't like being separated. Then he can dislike it from the porch." Archer growled low. I touched 2 fingers to the plate behind his jaw. "Stay," I said. He looked at me. Not at Vale, not at the deputies, at me. That look said many things. Most of them were insults. But he lowered himself beside the hitching rail and set his head on his front claws. The deputies all pretended not to be relieved. Inside, the ranger station smelled like dust, paper, gun oil, and old wood. It was cooler than the street. Wanted notices hung on one wall, maps on another. A jail door stood at the back, bars black in the dim. I had been in rooms like that before. Not in Akila, in New Atlantis. Security rooms, holding rooms, places where adults asked questions they already thought they knew the answers to. My hands curled. Dane noticed. "Breathe," he said quietly. I hated that he knew. I did it anyway. Vale took my statement first. She asked about the lights over the ridge, the bikes, the crawler, the number of spacers I saw, what they wore, what weapons they carried. I answered as best I could. When memory blurred, I said so. When I did not know, I said that too. She seemed to respect that more than certainty. Dane's statement took longer. They moved him into the back room. I sat on a bench near the front with Ranger Koss leaning against the wall beside me. Through the window, I could see Archer outside, surrounded by a cautious half-circle of curious townsfolk. A child tried to step closer. Archer opened one eye. The child reconsidered the direction of his life. Koss followed my gaze. "You trained him?" "Yes." "How?" "Badly, at first." He smiled. "And now?" "Less badly. You know people are scared of him. People are scared of anything they can't control." "Can you control him?" I watched Archer flick his tail as a man walked too close. "No," I said. Koss looked at me. I added, "But he trusts me. Most days, that's better." Koss was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You ever think about doing something official with that?" I looked at him. "With an Ashta?" "With yourself." Before I could answer, the back room door opened. Dane and Ranger Vale stepped out. Something had changed. Not in Dane's face. Dane could have been told the world was ending and looked annoyed about the timing. But Vale was different. She looked at me with a kind of measuring weight she had not had before. Then she looked away too quickly. "What?" I asked. Dane said, "Nothing." That was a lie. I knew lies. I had grown up on them. But he moved past me before I could press it. We left the station with signed statements and a stamped salvage claim, which Dane folded like it mattered more than being alive. Akila's afternoon heat hit us hard as we stepped outside. Archer rose at once. The crowd moved back. I placed a hand on his head. "Miss me?" He huffed. Koss said, "That means yes." "That means he's deciding whether I'm worth the trouble." We walked toward the market before heading back. Dane still needed feed straps, and I suspected he wanted me moving through the city instead of sitting too long with my thoughts. Annoying thing, being known by someone. The city was louder now. Ships lifted from the port on columns of heat shimmer. A vendor sold grilled skewers that smelled better than they looked. A woman hammered metal brackets at a stall, each strike ringing bright. Rangers passed with a spacer's face displayed on a slate, asking if anyone had seen him. At the tracker board, the scarred bounty hunter had taken one of the posted contracts and was loading rounds into a side pouch. Life continued. That bothered me more than the quiet had. Part of me wanted the world to stop and admit something had happened, that men had come to our farm and tried to kill us, that I had fired a rifle at another human being, that Dane had nearly bled through his sleeve pretending he was fine, that Archer limped even if he would rather bite himself than show weakness. But Akila City did not stop. It absorbed. A fight on a farm became a rumor became a warning became business. Someone needed replacement fence rails, someone needed ammunition, someone needed bounty hunters, someone needed drinks. That was how a frontier survived. It kept moving because stopping too long meant dying in place. At the general store, the owner, Hask, greeted Dane first, then me. Craven, Hask. He looked past me. Archer. Archer gave him nothing. Hask leaned under the counter and brought up a bundle wrapped in paper. Mara asked me to hold these if you came by. Stitch thread, antiseptic, couple of ration packs. He paused. And this. He set a small bag of dried meat on the counter. I raised an eyebrow. For him, Hask said, nodding toward Archer. You like him now? No, I like my porch unchewed. Bribery is cheaper than repairs. I took the bag. Fair. As we stepped outside, two men near the trough stopped talking when they saw me, then started again, lower. I caught pieces. From the well, wasn't he? Ashta tore one clean apart. Dane's boy. Dane's boy. I should not have liked hearing that. But I did. By late afternoon, we loaded the rover and started back toward the gate. Akila's walls threw long shadows across the road. The city behind us kept breathing. Ships, voices, hammers, dust, deals, secrets. I looked back once. The well had taught me how to disappear inside a crowd. Akila City made disappearing harder. People saw you here, not always kindly, not always fairly, but they saw the work you did, the trouble you caused, the damage you repaired, the thing walking beside you with blood on its shoulder and loyalty in its bones. Maybe that was why I had hated it at first. There were fewer places to hide. Dane climbed into the rover slowly, slower than he wanted me to notice. I pretended not to. Archer settled onto the rear platform with a heavy sigh, dried meat bag between his front claws like treasure. I took the passenger seat. For a while, we drove in silence. The city shrank behind us. Dust rose in our wake. The badge in my pocket pressed against my leg. I finally said, "What did you and Ranger Vale talk about?" Dane kept his eyes on the road. "Spacer routes." "Liar." His mouth twitched. I braced for the lecture. It did not come. Instead, he said, "Some conversations are not ready to be heard." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No. At least you're honest." "When convenient." I looked at him. The lines in his face seemed deeper in the falling light. "Was it about me?" Dane did not answer right away. That was answer enough. "It was about the future," he said finally. I touched the badge through my pocket. "My future?" "Maybe." I watched the road unspool ahead of us, leading back to the damaged farm, the patched porch, Mara's sharp eyes, and whatever waited after that. "I don't know what I want," I said. Dane nodded like that was not a failure. "Good." I frowned. "Good means you're thinking instead of running." Archer shifted behind us, claws scraping the cargo bed. The sun dipped lower, and Akila's hard land turned copper. I looked toward the horizon where the first stars would show once the sky darkened enough. Somewhere beyond them was the vanguard Dain had left behind. Somewhere beyond them was a life I could not picture without feeling both trapped and pulled toward it. I had survived the well. I had survived Akila. I had survived spacers at the farm, but surviving was beginning to feel like the first chapter of something, not the whole story. I hated that too, mostly because it sounded like hope. Dane drove on. I kept my hand over the badge, and behind us, Akila City stayed alive in the dust.